Both candidates went at it last night, just not in the same room. Of course, those dueling town halls, and of course yours, George, in Philly with the vice president last night.
Yeah, and we were there for an hour and a half, and the vice president actually took a lot of questions from the viewers after. He wanted to make sure that everyone got their questions answered, so he was there even later than I was last night. It was a substantive exchange. Got a little bit of news out of him on the Supreme Court. He's now promising an answer before the election day.
Before the election day, we'll be watching for that. And it is just 18 days until those final votes are in. We are officially in the final stretch, and so we want to get right to it this morning.
And Mary Bruce is in Philadelphia. She has all the highlights from both town halls. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, these two town halls were as different as the candidates themselves. This remarkable split-screen moment that made crystal clear just how stark the differences are in these campaigns, both on substance and style. Joe Biden spending much of the night looking ahead, outlining his plans for the future, while the president, often combative, spent much of the night on defense. Overnight, the candidates not face-to-face, but still fighting from afar, offering contradicting visions for how to lead the country out of this pandemic.
I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks.
And when a president doesn't wear a mask or makes fun of folks like me when I was wearing a mask for a long time, then, people say, well, it mustn't be that important.
President Trump says he and the country are on the mend, even with cases on the rise.
We have done an amazing job, and it's rounding the corner, and we have the vaccines coming, and we have the therapies coming.
But Joe Biden said the president failed the American people.
He said he didn't tell anybody because he was afraid Americans would panic. It is a presidential responsibility to lead. And he didn't do that. He didn't talk about what needed to be done because he kept worrying, in my view, about the stock market.
The president on defense.
I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say everybody's going to die.
The most shocking moment of the night, Trump refusing to denounce the fringe conspiracy group QAnon, which baselessly believes Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring that only Trump can stop.
I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe you do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
On the Supreme Court, the president, who's running as a pro-life conservative, wouldn't say if he wants Roe versus Wade overturned.
I think it would be inappropriate to say right now.
While Biden still refused to give a straight answer on whether he supports expanding the Supreme Court. But he's promising one soon, saying voters have a right to know, even as nearly 18 million Americans have already cast their ballot.
No matter what answer I gave you, if I say it, that's the headline tomorrow. It won't be about what's going on now, the improper way they're proceeding.
But don't voters have a right to know where you stand?
They do have a right to know where I stand, and they'll have a right to know where I stand before they vote.
So you'll come out with a clear position before Election Day?
Yes, depending on how they handle this.
Both candidates also addressing issues of racism and how they plan to bring the country together.
I'll say it loud, and I'm very proud of it. And I have a great relationship because of what I've done with the African-American community. I'm very proud of it.
The president, who refused to disavow white supremacy at the first debate, grew visibly frustrated when asked why he hesitated to do so.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
I tell you one thing, if I'm elected president, you will not hear me race-baiting, you'll not hear me dividing, you'll hear me trying to unify.
Cedric Humphrey pushing Biden on whether he's taking the black vote for granted.
Besides You Ain't Black, what do you have to say to young black voters who see voting for you as further participation in a system that continually fails to protect them?
If young black women and men vote, you can determine the outcome of this election. Not a joke. You can do that. And the next question is, am I worthy of your vote? Can I earn your vote?
Biden then detailing policy proposals to help black Americans gain wealth.
Do you hear what you needed to hear?
I think so.
With 18 days to go, the president again sowing doubt without evidence about the election's legitimacy.
What's your own FBI director says there is no evidence of widespread fraud.
Well, then he's not doing a very good job.
Biden saying win or lose, he'll keep working towards a more perfect union.
Mr. Vice President, if you lose, what will that say to you about where America is today?
Well, it could say that I'm a lousy candidate and I didn't do a good job. But I think, I hope that it doesn't say that we are as racially, ethnically, and religiously at odds with one another as it appears the president wants us to be.
Now, in the room last night, it was clear that Joe Biden was really enjoying this rare opportunity to interact with voters. He didn't want to leave. He hung around for quite some time chatting with voters, answering their additional questions. Now, next week, the two candidates will have a chance to actually come face to face in the same room at the final debate. And Joe Biden telling you that he does expect to be there next week.
He'll be there, but he wants the president to have a negative test before he does. Meantime, Mary Kamala Harris's campaign has had to be altered because there were some positive COVID tests in her campaign entourage.
Yeah, George, the Biden campaign has announced that 3 people in the campaign orbit have now tested positive. They say neither Joe Biden nor Kamala Harris have had close contact with these people. They have both tested negative yesterday, but they say out of an abundance of caution, Harris will be off the campaign trail through the weekend.
Okay, George. Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Let's bring in our Chief White House correspondent, John Carl, for more on last night. You were going back and forth between the town halls. What'd you see?
Well, I saw a study in contrast, George. I mean, it couldn't have been more stark. On one hand, you had Joe Biden, thoughtful, reflective, occasionally long-winded, talking about specific policy proposals, legislation. And on the other hand, you saw a very combative Donald Trump, offering very little in the way of specifics to what he would do in a second term. George, I thought one of the most telling moments of the night in the Donald Trump town hall was when he was asked point blank, why should people support you and give you a second chance for a second term? And he said, because I've done a great job. That was the level of specificity. And at a time when most polls show that well over half Americans do not approve of the job that Donald Trump has done in his first term, that is not going to be a sufficient answer.
Well, that's the question now for the president. How does he change the trajectory? We've now seen 20 million Americans have already voted. We're 2.5 weeks away from the final votes. And the president, according to national polls, the average of national polls, about 10 points behind.
He needs to do something dramatic to change, and frankly, he did not do that last night. He had a chance to respond to some very tough questions. Actually, I thought it was probably one of his better appearances, but then he went off, as Mary mentioned, kind of almost praising the conspiracy theorists of QAnon. He offered, again, very little specifics. One issue that has dogged Republicans 2 years ago, is the question of health care. He was asked a very friendly question from somebody who voted for him last time around. What is your plan for keeping health care costs down? And he really had no answer whatsoever except to say that Obamacare is bad and he got rid of the individual mandate. No specifics on what he would do on health care.
John Carl, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.